through a couple of our Dr. Gill's students. There's 3 or 4 of us working on it. So if you guys want to follow along, by all means, you can follow at PATT_39 on Twitter and get all your updates there. All right. Marilyn and Sarah, what we'll do is I'll just pop on the mic, considering your slides are going to be on the slideshow, and I'll give you a 5-minute warning. I don't mean to cut you off or anything, but I'll just pop in and then you'll be able to know you got about 5 minutes left. Without further ado, investigating the relationships between gender and subject attainment, influencing further study of technology subjects in Malta by Marilyn Stellini and Sarah Poulet.
Sorry, Marilyn, you're on mute there. Yeah, that one should do it.
Can you hear me by any chance?
Now we can, yes.
All right, thank you. Things that happen. So, as I've said previously, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. Here from Malta, it's already lunchtime. And after, I will be introducing a study which I've been working on with Dr. Sarah Poulet that is investigating the relationship between gender and subject attainment. As you might recall, the last time we participated was in 2019 when PATT was held in Malta, actually. And I am at the moment an educator at St. Aloysius College and also a Master of Education student. Dr. Sarah Poulet is a University of Malta lecturer in the Faculty of Education and in the Department of Technology Entrepreneurship. So, as I've said, the paper presented today is on investigating technology subjects in Malta. And the study is an expansion of the research we've published in 2019 that was on investigating subject attainment and factors governing students' decisions together. And through that study, we've seen that there were positive perceptions of design and technology by secondary students, but the issue was that of social considerations and future career objectives having an impact on their decisions. And in the study, then, we mainly focused on investigating whether there is a relationship between gender and their attainment at 16 years and in their ordinary exam level. The study is based on a longitudinal study that is based on quantitative data collected along the 12 years of the subject being provided at MQF level 3. And then this data was tested out using SPSS. So the main highlight of the study is that of the association between gender and subject attainment. But we've also found other variables of association, such as grades and also type of school. The study concludes that the gender achievement relationship is there. It is, and it is weak. And also that the female registrations, although they are smaller compared to males, they still accomplish more, and they have been increasing. Hence, we can say that they are moving away from stereotypical traditions. So, if we had to go back in the history of technology education in Malta, it goes back in 1893 when linear design was introduced in elementary schools. And then during the World War II, 2 technical schools were established for male students only. Here you will be seeing a timeline of our educational system. It started from 1970, and technical drawing was introduced in junior lyceums and also technology education in trade schools, until technology education was transferred in secondary and trade schools phased out. In 2005, technology education changed its name into design and technology. And then we had graphical communication and design and technology as two subjects. In 2015, VT, vocational subject, basically, engineering technology was introduced within the sector as well. So if we had to go and see an overview of the technology education history in Malta, we can mainly state that that is the history of male education. But an emphasis has been given on gender equity in classrooms. And in fact, we will be seeing the number of students registering for technology-related subjects in their O levels and their underrepresentativeness. So the main questions are these. One of them is whether there is a relationship between gender and student attainment. The other is whether there are any patterns or variables in how students perform. And last but not least, the relationship between gender and the type of school students are registering from. So to begin with, it was of interest actually to see to search with regards to interest, as interest is really important since it is influenced by our identity, and it also influences our attention, objectives, and learning levels. Not to say the least, also subject taking, which was outlined in our previous study. Also, skills and knowledge. Knowledge affects our skills, and also how one gains knowledge through practice of skills is affected. In fact, interest is a driving force for both skills and knowledge, we've seen. And this study is aimed to determining and investigating subject attainment and whether it correlates or is affected by different variables. And in previous studies, we've also seen that boys are overrepresented in lower school tracks and girls are overrepresented in high school tracks. And we wanted to investigate whether this is the same in Malta. In fact, a similar study to ours showed in North America, but among 1.6 million students, showed that although the difference in STEM academic rates is relatively small and skewed a little in favor of males, and we wanted to check on that as well. And in fact, we applied a theoretical framework within our paper that which explains the cognitive abilities and also the motivations and the setting of the growth mindset. We understand that cognitive motivation factors and motivation factors can be affected by stereotypes and biases, but together and with the issue of mindset, a growth mindset, a female student can persist and can lead and go against the challenges present within society. And we also understand that females might be less feel comfortable in opting masculine subjects, whereas it's the same when the wheel is turned, and masculine students might feel not comfortable choosing female biased subjects. We also have seen studies where they state that students are more likely to pursue male-dominated subjects in single-sex classes, and this might be that because female students are not feeling in minority, and in fact their performance is also superior. Just for other reference, in Malta, the multi-state schools have shifted from single-sex to co-ed way back in 2014-15. And moving forward, another study based in Malta by Gallian 2007 already showed a few patterns over here, funded by the UNESCO and the University of Malta, which identified how women engage in science and technology subjects within these secondary schools. And it showed the study that the performance of these individuals, although they are in minority, females are superior and are dominating males within the marks, and such group show that they are prepared to go against the traditions within our society. So moving forward on the methodology, what the study is based on. The study is based on a 12-year longitudinal study, and this data was all obtained from statistical releases published by METSEC. METSEC is basically is where the students obtain their certification at MQF level 3. And from these releases, we can gain a lot of information, which I will be showing. At MQF level 3, students obtain a secondary education certificate, and students can apply to which subjects they want, and through their examination, if they get grades from 1 till 5, they get the certificate. And 1 is the highest grade, whereas 5 is the lowest. Just to let you know, compulsory education here in Malta is at 16 years. So these exams are held when they are 16 years old. So what about technological subjects? Apart from the digital sciences, we are focusing on 3 areas that are design and technology, the most emphasized, graphical communication, and VET engineering technology. And what is the information we got from these official statistical reports? The information is really important because we got the number of registrations for each subject, the applicant's gender, the type of school students applied from, and even their grades by gender. And in fact, here we are going to see the results. The results, we divided them into graphs and charts, so you can understand better. For example, in the first scenario, we are seeing that in design and technology, the most dominant registrations are males, and these figures are all for the 12 years consecutively. And we can see that female registrations increase by time in a slower phase. Whereas these here we can see graphical communication and also engineering technology. Just to let you know, we haven't focused on engineering technology because the first registrations marks were obtained in 2017. So we couldn't produce a longitudinal study on such subject. Then, after having all these figures, we wanted to check whether there is a relationship between gender and academic achievement. And through SPSS, we found that the association between these 2 variables is accepted. But we also ran the coefficiency, Pearson's coefficiency, and the strength of relationship was found to be weak. We've ran the same methods, the same SPSS with the different figures for graphical communication. And the same thing occurred, where there is a relationship between gender and academic achievement, but it is weak. So what we've done is we've designed 3 cluster bar graphs with gender and their grades divided, and also trend lines. As you can see, the first one is for DNT, the other one is graphical, and the last one is engineering technology. And from these bar graphs, we can see that girls acquire the higher percentages of grades. So the highest marks are all obtained by girls, the majority, whereas for the lower tracks are obtained by male students. So from there, we wanted to evaluate also whether there is a relationship between gender and school type registration. And from here, we could also observe that the largest number of registrations for DNT was in state schools in Malta and Gozo. Gozo is an island with Malta. And then for graphical communication, we can see that the highest registrations is outlined in all secondary schools, whether state, church, independent, or else in Gozo. So we took these 2 subjects, and then we wanted to see furthermore how strong is the relationship between these 2 variables. And we've seen that for design and technology, the association indicates a weak relationship. But for graphical, there is a medium strength relationship. And from here, we will move forward into the discussion then. So basically, just to clear out, the main focus of this paper was to present an image of the association between gender and technology in Malta, but we've found also unforeseen patterns with regards to gender and the type of school registrations. And there was more data, but we couldn't include everything, literally. So, and we've seen that the male registrations dominate these subjects, and unfortunately, these can cause pressures also, as they can cause internal and also external pressures on the decisions students take, especially female students, since they are lower in the registration number. And in our case, we also did the previous study. It showed us that it might be the issue, not it might be, actually it is the issue of career goals, which makes a huge impact on students' decision in design and technology. Then we've moved forward to seeing that the minority group in technological subjects, even in foreign studies, show that this minority group tends to have the highest marks as compared to the dominant. And this was also agreed within our study, that although the relationship between the two variables is weak, between gender and subject attainment, we've seen that females are in minority, but they obtain higher marks. So here comes the framework we've mentioned before, where cognitive ability and motivation are explained, and together these direct students with a growth mindset. So female students can go against this glass ceiling effect, this barrier, with a growth mindset. They can persist and go against these challenges. And that is what our study is.
5 minutes left.
All right, thank you. That is what our study is mainly focused on intervening, on improving female representation in the Maltese technological subjects. Another thing we've noticed is that the largest number of registrations is from state schools, as they offer all the 3 subjects. In fact, I will be showing you that in the next slide, that the strength for design and technology was weak, but we wanted to check why it is weak, whereas for graphical, it is moderate. All state schools are co-educational, just to add, and church schools are still in transition, are still largely single-sex, although some of them are in transition of being co-ed as well. And we've seen that in single-sex schools, females are more likely to pursue these subjects because they don't feel in minority. So, as you can see over here in the tables, for design and technology, the first one, the number of female registrations is 0 because design and technology is not offered in church schools. And whereas for male students, there are 488 students. Just to let you know, still not all church schools, even in male church schools, do not offer design and technology, but mainly they do. And if we had to see with regards to graphical communication, we can see that the rate is higher because graphical is offered in all schools. So basically, we can add that in church schools, as they do not offer design technology as an optional subject, we are disservicing our girls in church schools. And as a result, this showed that the largest number of female registrations are from co-educational state schools. Also, females in Malta are in the transition, as we've seen in the achievement that they are getting high grades still, although the registration is lower. So, to conclude, we know for sure that, and we've seen that the Maltese educational system has been strengthening and deepening its roots towards technology education in Malta, and the information and research is also improving and adding and developing. The new modifications, for instance, in the next scholastic year in Malta, new syllabi will take practice. The assessment will be changed. They will not still be exams only, but they will be having assessments as well included within the MQF level marks. So this might also impact our students' perspectives and attitudes in pursuing technology-related fields. Last but not least, we always recommend that research and investment in advanced level of design and technology should be included, because here in Malta at MQF level 4, students can only opt for graphical communication and engineering drawing at A level, advanced level, or in graphical communication at intermediate level. Another future research recommendation would be that of research relating to gender and the uptake of technology, as we've stated in our previous study. And for now, we would like to thank you for following and finding interest in listening to our research. Over here, we are providing our email, so should you would like to contact us, we would be happy and appreciate your feedback. I think from here, we can go over to the questions, right?
Thank you so much, Marilyn and Sarah. If there's any questions in the room, I can hand off the mic here.
Thank you so much. Marilyn, I listened to you in Malta. I remember you clearly. And it's exciting just to like hear you again and hear your thinkings and thoughts. So it's so nice to see you. Thank you so much for your presentation. I think it's fascinating what you are showing us. It's always fascinating with data, but also it becomes so clear maybe where your challenges are as a community. It's hard to choose something that you aren't offered. I'm thinking about the church schools and D&T, for example. So I think your work could be of great importance also for your educational system to actually point out with the data, look at this, and also how can females choose something if they're not offered it. So I think that is great. As you notice, there's not so much questions here, just praising. I also think that now I forgot my commentary. So I will ask a question instead. What kind of ages, because you talked about interventions, what kind of ages would you think, based on your research, could be favorable to start or do, and what kind of interventions would you like to see out of this experience now?
Well, out of this experience, I know that there have been expos in design and technology for our students, but that is an activity that parents have to take their children to, for example. So I would suggest that maybe competitions, maybe expos within classrooms or competitions between schools should be added, and also show females that there are women within the sector, so they can relate to us. Because generally students, female students specifically, when they hear design and technology, some of them, they literally picture a man within it, or a designer, they literally picture a man. So I think we should intervene by providing more information to our students and let them explore.
Thank you so much. And I think you also saying something important, because we can read the same kind of literature, you and me, as I saw on your references. And also I think it's important to actually put your own kind of context and culture to the work you do. And I think you do that beautifully now. And by also answering the way that you do, because we can't apply, let's say, a Scandinavian perspective of something that isn't like Scandinavian. So I think your work could be a very nice and beautiful contribution to the whole field, actually. So thank you. Thank you for answering. And also thank you again for your presentation.
Thanks.
All right. Any other questions there? Maybe from the room or online? Anything online? All right. Well, if there is no further questions, Marilyn and Sarah, thank you so much. It's a great presentation.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Take care.
Thanks.
All right, folks, we're going to get things started. So presenting on the international experts' views of authenticity in integrated STEM education is Jonas Hallström, Per Nordstrom, and Conrad Schonborn.
Thank you. With us today is also Per, but Conrad, he is engaged elsewhere, so it will be me and Per presenting this paper. So yes, we are 3 authors from Linköping University and KTH Royal Institute of Technology. And this paper is part of a research project that we have that's called A-STEM, Models and Modeling for Authentic STEM Education. And it's financed by the Swedish Research Council. And it runs from 2021 to 2024. So this is part of this project. And to give a little bit more background, it's the data on which this paper is based is part of an international Delphi study that we're doing right now. We're just finishing up writing this. We've started the final analysis of this Delphi data and writing up our Delphi paper. And when you do a Delphi study, it's called Delphi because of the oracle in Delphi, if you remember from Greek mythology. It's a scientific methodology where you try to get an expert consensus on a subject or a specific topic. And in multiple rounds, you kind of hone in on some kind of consensus through multiple rounds. And the data for this paper is from our first round in the Delphi. And in the Delphi methodology that we use, we have 3 rounds, and the first qualitative data is used to as a basis for how we do the other rounds. So it's really not used directly in the Delphi study. So that's why we decided to extract it from our Delphi, so to speak, to make to write an own paper about this data. So in that sense, it's a work in progress, but it's also in itself an interesting, very rich data with a lot of different aspects of modeling and authenticity and integrated STEM education. So those are the 3 themes really in this project, and which can be seen also in this paper. Yes, so the aim of this particular paper is to systematically explore international views of authenticity in integrated STEM education. We used an online survey to obtain a panel's view on integrated STEM as an educational enterprise at large. And we got some comments on the paper in the review round when we call it a STEM expert panel. And it's can one really be a STEM expert? That's a very interesting question, and we will get back to that at the end of this presentation. But so we changed it to an international panel with views on authenticity in integrated STEM education. And this STEM expert panel that we still call it the STEM expert panel, but it's a very interesting question if you can be an expert on all of STEM, the 4 subjects: science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Maybe that's questionable, but at least these 28 researchers and practitioners are experienced in science, technology, engineering, and/or mathematics, as well as related educational disciplines. And it consists of 12 women and 16 men. So it's fairly, apart from covering the whole of STEM education, it also covers, it's the gender distribution is fairly equal, or it's, I think it's, given the circumstances, it's the best we could get. And it's also a very good spread across the world. All continents except Antarctica are represented. And we nearly got one expert from Antarctica also, but it failed in the last moment. Yes. And for this round, the first round, that's this qualitative data, that's the basis for this paper. We have 3 survey questions. The first question was, what is your opinion of possible opportunities and limitations of integrating science, technology, engineering, and mathematics STEM disciplines in education? That was the first question. The second one, what is your opinion about the roles of models and modeling in STEM education? And could you give an example of a modeling learning outcome? And the last one was, provide and motivate an example based on your own work experiences where modeling is involved in an authentic, real-world relevant STEM learning or work scenario. So among these experts, they weren't only from research, like the people attending this conference, like educational research about the STEM disciplines, but they were also practitioners or professionals in industry. So we thought that these 3 questions could be relevant for all of these experts, and it was very interesting, the kind of replies that we got. So among the findings the themes that emerged that we present in the paper also were the following. The first theme, integrated STEM education requires authentic, real-world problems that support innovative and critical thinking. The second theme, integrated STEM education approaches that employ modeling provide opportunities to include real-life solutions and genuine problem solving that are not otherwise possible. And thirdly, real-world STEM education scenarios are technology and engineering based. And it's this third theme that's really interesting for this conference. And Per will now take over and say a little bit specifically about this theme.
Yes, we found this somewhat surprising, given that large parts of the panel did not consist of technicians or engineers, but even those who had a background in mathematics and the sciences tended to describe these real-world scenarios in engineering terms, even though they seldom use the very term engineering. But I will elaborate on that during the next few minutes. First, what do we mean by engineering? Well, engineering has been defined in many ways for a very long time, and we've all seen these flow charts describing a work process from a problem or an idea through sketching, drawing, prototypes, finished product, and perhaps on to maintenance and scrapping at the end, which is a very common way of describing the engineering process and the engineering activities in textbooks, for example. A well-known 19th century description is that engineering is the art of directing the great sources of power in nature for the use and convenience of man. And we do that through the engineering design process, through the engineering work. Pling. And this is one example provided by one of our respondents, where they described an integrated STEM activity where students should design and model a home solar system. And this is a clear example of engineering in Treadgold's meaning, directing the great sources of power in nature, well, the sun in this case, and for the use and convenience of man. And throughout this work, mathematics are used. They would need to mathematically calculate. You can see there near the center. And they would also need knowledge of science, physics to calculate energy, necessary energy, and so on. Pling. And this is a summary of the real world scenarios provided by our 28 respondents. Only 27 actually answered this, the third question, where they were to provide an example. And a vast majority of them were engineering based. They were about directing the great sources of power in nature for the use and convenience of man. 3 of them had to do with solar energy, 2 with disability aids, 4 or even 5 about sensors and actuators for simplifying everyday tasks, 2 about data compression and transfer, 2 about functional clothing and modern materials in clothing, and mathematical modeling of vehicles, and a few concerning improvement of everyday objects. And there were also a few, 4 to be exact, that were not clearly related to engineering, but the vast majority had to do with engineering in some way. And for you, coming from the engineering and technology education world, that is perhaps not surprising, but I will show why we think it is. Pling. The traditional view of STEM, or at least how the term has been used for the last 15 years or so, it has varied, but generally the concept of STEM has been possible to place on a continuum, with at one end where STEM is just a collective name for the root disciplines. We teach science, we teach technology, we teach engineering as separate subjects, but we use STEM as a collective name for them. And at the other end of the continuum, everything is integrated. There are no clear borders between this science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, but everything is taught in unison, generally problem-based in some way. And among our respondents, the whole continuum was represented in the first question, where they were to describe integration of subjects. And there were those who claimed that the disciplines must be kept separate, either motivated by how teacher education is organized, or by tradition, or by some described risk of dilution of knowledge if the traditional subjects were dissolved. And on the other hand, it was argued in another way that the real world is not divided into subjects, then we cannot divide complex problem solving in school and education into subjects either, but they must be taught, learned, and discussed together. And this whole continuum was represented among both those from industry and the education experts and the academics who participated in the survey. But these views were not visible when they were to provide those examples that I showed before, where a vast majority was based on engineering in some sense. Pling. Because this is how we interpret the panel's actual view of STEM teaching, STEM learning, and STEM when they were to provide an example. When in the examples, engineering is the basis for STEM. Engineering provides a framework in which the other disciplines are practiced in some way. And that is true both for those who describe the disciplines as separate and those who want to unite them. So
Yes.
Okay, I was a bit.
Yeah. Should we summarize? Yeah,
Yes,
this is a very interesting.
To suggest that.
Yeah, it's a very interesting finding that we will also be able to elaborate upon in when we conclude our Delphi study. By way of conclusions and implications from this study, the PATT paper, the panel viewed authentic learning in STEM education as centered around the engineering design process because it provides authentic context. And it kind of relates to the previous slide which Per showed. Modeling is also pivotal, for instance, mathematical and computational modeling. And authentic problems and real-life solutions are technology and engineering based, as we also said before. So the conclusion of this first round data is very much with technology and engineering in focus, especially the engineering design process. And what happens next now is that, as I said in the beginning, that we will finish our Delphi study and conclude our draw some conclusions from that analysis. And we will not say so much about this now because that will be a surprise. But one thing that we can say that's very interesting also, if we look at these three conclusions, is that you can see that authenticity is viewed as very important at the same time as it's also apparent that authenticity is also very hard to define and it's also contested. So the general conclusion that we've already kind of drawn from that last analysis is that authenticity is viewed as very important by most experts, but authenticity is also questioned because it's a very loose and amorphous concept. So that's kind of a little ambiguous conclusion from that study. And there are many more also, of course, but that's a surprise that will come maybe next year at the PATT conference. So thank you. That was all for us, Per, right?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, guys. What we'll do now is we'll open the floor to any questions. Back here. All right.
Thank you for a very interesting presentation. You know that we in Örebro University work with integrate STEAM with the A for art in the preschool education. And I wonder if you maybe have noticed some kind of creation connected to your other subjects. I think maybe you can see something in the engineering. I wonder because I'm an art teacher.
Yeah, certainly there's an element of design and the artists, not also in engineering, of course, but we also have some. I think one of the experts was specifically referring to STEAM education, including also arts. But generally, they've been very, they've focused on STEM. So we haven't really got much data on STEAM. But I know that's a very big thing also in Europe and America also. I think the STEAM acronym involving arts also. But I can't say very much from the point of view of our project since it's focused on STEM.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions in the room or online? I'll go over there, John, online. Sweet. Yeah. One here in the room.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I'm so curious, what is a real world problem and what could be a not a real world problem? Is it the typical from growing up with textbooks in mathematics going, this farmer will bring potatoes to the market and it will walk slowly in 5 kilometers an hour and the barrel weighs this kind of, what is a non-authentic? Just for as an example.
Exactly. That's one of the things that the experts react to. The fact that what's not authentic. I mean, it's you're absolutely right about that. But what I think, when you talk about when you look at various definitions of the authenticity, when you talk about authenticity or real world, what is meant often is the connection to a workplace context outside of school where you can apply the knowledge you've learned in school. So that's one way of defining authenticity or real world context as some real work context outside of school. Yes.
And we didn't. I would like to compliment what Jonas just said here, that we didn't ask for real world scenarios. We were asked for real world relevant scenarios. So it could be that were relevant for some learning that was useful in a context outside of school.
That was a very clever ad with a so yeah, that was a clever thing to do, I think.
And that was also to open up for relevant answers from the whole group of experts who came from different backgrounds. I mean, a curriculum designer tends to answer these questions in a way different than a teacher educator does, who answer it in a different way to an engineering expert working at a large Swedish company. But everyone could speak about real world relevance.
Because now when you say that, I was also thinking there could absolutely be a place in school for non-relevant also teaching, of course, because maybe you need some sort of knowledge to make it relevant. And therefore it might first be non-relevant and then relevant for the outside world. But thank you. So interesting. Thank you so much. And we are looking forward. I am looking forward. I'm talking for the whole room. Sorry. I'm looking forward to the solution to that cliffhanger that you also did there next year. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, anybody else in the room or anything online there? Nothing online? All right, well, that seems to be all. Thanks so much, guys. Great presentation again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for useful comments also. Thank you.
No sweat. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks. We will.